Hello and welcome to Endstep, the Upkeep after show. Last week we were playing with Jason's Commander decks because it's about his birthday coming up here pretty soon. And boy, we had some spice.
It was a game. It sure was a game.
It was a good game. So we're going to talk a little bit more about these decks, a little bit more about the game. Jason, is there anything you want to say before I dive into some of the more particular questions? Or is there maybe a deck you wish that someone else had picked? Is there an interaction you think that would have been cool to see in this game with the decks we had chosen? Anything you want to add before we get into specifics? Oh, I guess before he answers that, if you have not seen the game we're going to be talking about, go watch it because otherwise this video is not going to make any freaking sense. Okay, now you can answer.
Okay. No, honestly, I really felt that the decks that got chosen were pretty well matched against each other. They were going to be pretty good at either keeping the other decks at bay, or Preston's deck specifically was going to be really good at protecting himself. I mean, he didn't do a bunch of... And I felt so bad he didn't draw the really good cards. But what this deck does really well is you stick around a while. It's really good at protecting itself and making sure that you're there in the late game with an opportunity to maybe steal a win. But I think all the decks performed pretty well. I was happy when they got chosen because originally these weren't the decks that we were going to play. There was a little bit of a different dynamic that was going to happen. So I'm glad that we decided to go with the different decks. I love all these decks, man. I'm really happy and proud of the decks that I've built. I think they all work pretty well and do really good things. As far as being matched up with one another, I think the enchantment that Preston played that prevents black creatures from attacking or blocking, that's probably the best,
Because very meta-gaming.
Every other deck here had black in it, so... That was one thing, is like he's going to be able to protect himself basically from everybody's decks for the most part, but no, not really. There's no one decker in here that necessarily hoses another deck.
Yeah, originally, like you said, it was originally going to be some different decks. I don't remember what everyone was originally going to choose, but I almost chose the Gandalf the Grey. Is that the one?
Yeah.
So is a spell slinger kind of thing. It was a neat deck, but when I realized that Miracle was on as an option, I had to play it because this is one of my favorite Absian commanders. I've thought about building it myself. I just really like this color combination. Yeah, it's cool. But let's talk about why we chose. So that's why I chose this one. But let's go around the table and you guys answer for yourself. Why did you choose the deck you chose?
Well, the main reason is because, when we had our favorite deck episode, this is the deck you busted out, and I brought Ajax and Nev. Both of them are token decks. I think token decks are really fun. And this one, it's different. It's definitely different than Ajax and Nev. And I just really like tokens. So
I believe that's still our most viewed video. And
Yeah.
you won that one. So we have now 2 Felice wins on the channel. Preston.
So I picked this one just because I've really gotten to white recently, and I know Jason really likes this deck a lot, so I just thought it'd be fun to give it a shot on the channel and see what it could do.
Yeah, that's another deck that's won on the show when we played least played colors. You built that just out of cards you already had because you didn't have them on a white deck, and you ended up winning even though it's just kind of a pile of a bunch of random cards. So pretty cool.
And actually, in our Spell Table series, Miracle won a
That's
game
right.
in that.
I forgot about that. That's true. So it's really just Ur-Dragon we haven't got to see a win. But Tommy, why'd you choose the Ur-Dragon?
I mean, it's Ur-Dragon.
Well,
Honestly, that's the same reason that you chose the deck. That's the same reason I built the deck.
Right? It's
And
like-
I was like, wow, this is Ur-Dragon, man. This thing is
Ur-Dragon.
nice.
This thing's cool. I mean,
Ur-Dragon doesn't have to have a win on the channel. It's Ur-Dragon.
it's Ur-Dragon. I mean, that's kind of the thing. That's kind of it, really. Is just it's Ur-Dragon. 5-color dragons. I like big, angry creatures that swing hard and just fight everything. So, I mean, why wouldn't I pick Ur-Dragon? But I like Ur-Dragon.
This is the second time we have seen Ur-Dragon. We played a game in season 1 where everyone played 5-color decks, and Jason did play the Ur-Dragon. So if you do want to see it in action, there was some pretty awesome stuff that went down in that game, so you can check it out if you haven't seen it.
pretty awesome.
Yes.
Well, it depends on your perspective.
I thought it was a sweet game. That's one of my favorite
it was a good
episodes.
game.
That was one of my favorite episodes from
yeah.
season 1. So I know that we kind of got to the point where we were mostly in top deck mode for a large period of the game. It looked like I wasn't in top deck mode, but I swear to God I had 4 lands in hand, so I was kind of in top deck mode. So is there anything that you know about the deck that you've seen in the deck that you're like, it really would have been sweet if I got to play that? I'll go ahead and say this. Well, 2 things. 1, I totally misplayed. I should not have cast the Merciless Eviction, blowing up enchantments. The reason I did that was because Steven was going to keep gaining life off his enchantment. He still had the Smothering Tide, and then Preston just played the thing that said black creatures can't attack or block, which means that he maybe could have squeaked out the win. It was going to prolong the game. It was already like a 2-hour, 45-minute long game. It was long. So I figured I need to do that just to make it so the game can progress and eventually end. Though that drastically diminished my chance of winning because most of my value on board was enchantments. So huge punt on my part. But the card that I tutored for with Vampiric Tutor would have actually won me the game had I had a way to actually draw it and get it into my hand. It was the Meat Hook Massacre, which is for X black black. When it enters the battlefield, it's a legendary enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, each creature gets -X until end of turn. And then whenever a creature I control dies, each opponent loses a life. And whenever a creature an opponent control dies, I gain a life. Okay, so that actually wouldn't have won me the game now that I think about it because I only had the 1 creature. But
You would have.
I would have gained
a lot of life.
I would have gained an absurd amount of life. It was like 70-something life I would have gained. So that at least would have given me more than enough time to figure out what the heck to do. But that's neither here nor there.
I think
It
it's
is what it
still.
is.
I think it's still safe to say that card probably wins you the game, just
Yes.
because you're at like almost 10 times the life total of both these guys. So
Yes, I think so. But what about you guys? Did you have anything in the deck that you know about or maybe was hoping to find?
I mean, one that I was definitely hoping for at some point was Hellkite Courser.
Yes.
Just to get Dragon out for way cheaper. Get him out, give him haste, let him hit something really hard. Ideally, while I still had Sylvia Brightspear out, so he had double strike, so I could hit someone for 20 commander damage.
God, that would have been awesome.
That would have been very nice. Because a lot of the reason I couldn't do much towards the end was just because Steven liked to keep killing killing Dragon, making him cost stupid amounts of mana to cast. So if I could have done something to make him cheaper, get him out and hit someone, that would have been
What was the most?
would have been really
what
nice.
was the most
but
mana that you had to pay to cast the original?
13.
The same here with the lease.
You got
13.
Okay,
a 5 mana
okay, but
commander up to 13.
that's still worse for you because yours is 5. Dragon is normally 9 with that, so it's really not that bad. But
Did you have
a lot of
anything,
mana.
Preston?
Well, one would be Avacyn Angel of Hope to
yeah.
protect against some of those board wipes. It's a big, dumb, fun creature. Also, Swords of Plowshare, so I could have taken out Steven's commander one more time.
dude,
Man, I've never seen so many Path to Exiles in a game in my life.
honestly,
God.
like the Lease got pathed a couple times, Dragon got exiled a couple times, or no, he got exiled and then destroyed.
I
A lot
think-
of commander hate on
Yeah,
these.
there was a lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, these are all pretty strong commanders. So, what is something about Jason's deck building that maybe differs from how you would normally build decks? To start, he runs about half as many lands as I would
Yeah.
recommend. I think
Not half as many, but
not literally, but you know, like,
significantly fewer.
I think there was if I remember right, there's 28 lands in this deck. And I usually start with 37, and then depending on my curve, I'll add 1 or 2 or cut 1 or 2. So he runs way fewer lands than I do, on average like 10 fewer. So that's the big thing, especially because the curve on this deck is pretty high, so it was just kind of surprising. But is there, and I think all of us are in the same boat with that, is Jason runs significantly fewer lands than we would typically, but is there anything else that seems different about Jason's decks that differ from how you would build?
I mean, for me, mostly, and this is just because I'm broke. He uses a lot more expensive cards than I do.
Yeah, I was
especially
gonna say
in, I mean,
that,
especially
too.
in Dragon. Obviously, some of the dragons are pretty expensive, and so I mean, there's that. But even just like, you know, all 4 of these decks had a Teferi's Protection in it, and I don't have that card. I mean, that's not even that expensive of a card. But I mean, I'm just talking like you just have a lot more expensive cards than I do, and so that's a personal thing for me. Is just
I'm not gonna
haven't
lie.
spent much money on Magic over the years.
And it's not he
so.
has 4 Teferi's Protection. He does the binder thing that
True.
most of us do. So he has 1, and then he borrowed 1 from me. He borrowed Yeah, so
Yeah. So I mean,
he doesn't own 4 Teferi's protections.
Right, I should have clarified. He doesn't own 4 Teferi's protections,
Yes.
but each one of these, he has one, and he puts it in decks just,
Yeah,
doing
what I'll
stuff.
say about that, there's certain cards that I want to go in every deck of the color, just because it's the commander staples. I want to put those into as many decks
Right.
as they can go in. But you're right, a lot of them are really expensive, and I don't want to spend $200 on 4 copies of one card.
Right.
I would rather either spend that money once, or what normally happens with me is I'll pull the card out of a pack.
You do
Yeah,
have good,
he
you do
has
have
the
good
same
luck.
luck with packs too, so I know
It's
that.
nuts. I have really good luck. I don't know how to explain it. It just happens. But I'll pull it out of a pack and then be like, this is great. I'll just slide it into my binder, and now I can run this in a bunch of different decks. It's a good way for me to save money on deck building. But also, I kind of just know exactly what goes into each deck. It helps me keep an idea of like the deck list, and that way if I'm going through my cards, I know what I need to take out and what I need to transfer between decks. It's just it's an efficient system for me.
Buy singles unless you're Jason. Then it's cheaper to buy packs.
Well, and I also want to clarify, not a knock on you. I'm just broke. I'm just broke, and I also have not been playing specifically Commander for as long as any of you guys. So like I just have had less time.
Don't have as many of this
and therefore have not been around when things like Commander 2017. I wasn't playing Magic at all in 2017,
Right.
so I missed the boat on that. And now
Well,
I want to build
that's
an
a
Edgar.
secret. That's a secret layer.
Well, that's a secret layer
the
version,
Edgar
but
Markov,
like
you mean?
I'm
Yes.
thinking I want to build an Edgar Markov deck, and he's now $140. It's like I
Say
He's
140?
yeah.
He's like 60.
I almost thought the cat dog
Wait,
deck, that was 150.
just him himself?
Now after Ixalan, with all the new vampire toys that came out in Ixalan, he's at least $120. He
Wait.
shot up.
Why do you do this?
Because they didn't reprint him in Commander Masters, and that was the only chance he'd get a reprint that we know of for the foreseeable
Unless they
future.
did a secret layer.
Unless they do a secret layer. And then, Ixalan came out and added a whole bunch of new cool vampire toys to just throw in there and make him even better. So,
Why do you do this?
I don't know. But I should have bought him when he was $60, because now he's double that. But anyway, sorry to go on that tangent, but that's
I'm
he
the
uses
same-
expensive cards, and I don't, so.
I'm the same way as Tommy because, like, if I see a card that's, like, probably worth more than $10, like, I'm cheap, and so I'm just, like, I'm hesitant about buying it, unless I go, like, all in, which doesn't happen that often because, again, I'm broke. So, it's kind of the same way, like, a lot of the staples, Teferi's Protection, Esper Sentinel, what are there?
Cyclonic Rift, I mean...
Sure.
You do have
I have a Cyclonic Rift, which I switch out with all my decks every time I play a blue deck, but...
Urborg, Yavimaya, I mean, there's a ton.
So,
Yavimaya is only like $8.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
that's not
true.
one that I have. I have multiple copies of Yavimaya.
I do too.
Yeah, okay, bad example,
But still, I mean, if it's like in the double digits, then I kind of be like,
That's usually where I draw my line. Like, so, there's some cards that are like $10 or $15 that I have multiple copies of, but usually if it's about that much, I only have one of it.
yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's worth it if it's niche enough that it's not going to go in like a bunch of decks. Like if I have one
Yeah.
copy of a card and I want a second copy of it, but it's niche enough that it's unlikely that I'll go in more than those 2 decks, I'll go ahead and just buy the second one. And then when it's at the like $10 mark, it's like, well, is there a slightly worse but cheaper version of the card? Then maybe I'll do that. Or, because a lot of the times I just want my decks functional, so maybe I'll buy it later, just throw in another basic or something for now. But if it's like one of the best cards in the deck, or it's like one of the staples of the archetype, it's worth spending the money on, even if it's like a $20-$30 card. If it's like the best card in the deck, it sucks, but it's worth it.
yeah.
But did you have anything else you wanted to add about the game or the decks or anything like that, Jason?
For as much as they like to say I don't put enough lands in, I don't think anybody not named Preston was having trouble with lands this game.
I mean, the game went for 50 turns, so we kind of just drew them naturally.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you play 4 of my decks, baby.
Well, this was a really fun experience. If you guys like this kind of game and you haven't seen them, we've done this quite a few times. We've done this with actually everyone in the play group at this point except for Tommy, but we'll get around to that at some point later this year, early next year. Sometime we'll get to it. So we did a game where everyone played one of my decks, everyone played one of Steven's decks, everyone played one of Preston's decks. That one's actually really recent. That just came out like a month ago. So go check those out if you want. And then make sure you subscribe. We have a couple other games left in the season. The last episode of this season is going to be Revenge Week, where everyone brings back a deck that they feel like didn't quite get to show off, but we were all playing one of Jason's decks, so that doesn't really make sense. So I guess none of these decks are coming, so that
Probably
narrows
not,
down your
yeah.
options for what you can play in Revenge Week. But we have a few more episodes left this season.
I'll tell you this, I don't plan on being in Revenge Week, so you're not going to see any of these decks regardless.
Yeah, so we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
All right, everyone team up on Jason.